Hello and welcome to SAR Histories, where on the channel today we will be visiting one of Derbyshire's finest houses, Kedleston Hall. Kedleston was first commissioned in 1759 and finished in 1765. It is the seat of the Curzon family, which can trace their heritage back to 1066. The house was designed by Robert Adam, a young Scot who had studied in Rome. The design of the three-storey house is of 3 blocks linked by 2 segmentary corridors. The ground floor is rusticated, while the upper floors are of smooth dressed stone. The central block contains the state rooms that were intended for formal entertaining. The east block was a self-contained country house in its own right, containing all the rooms for the family's private use. The identical west block contained the kitchens and all other domestic rooms and staff accommodation. There were also plans for 2 more identical blocks, which would have contained a music room to the southeast and a conservatory and chapel to the southwest, but these wings were never built as the family ran out of money. The north front of the house has features designed by Matthew Brettingham. Like the Paladin architecture, Robert Adams changed the design after being given sole responsibility for the house and its decoration in 1760, and made the facade look much more like a Greek or Roman temple. For the south front, Adam produced an entirely new design, with the central feature based on the Arch of Constantine in Rome, combined with the low dome of the Pantheon. If you look up to the top, you will see a Latin inscription that records the building completion in 1765 and bears the words Amius et Sibi, meaning for his friend and himself. The pleasure grounds were designed by Robert Adam and laid out to the south and west of the house. It features broad lawns and a ha-ha. The garden ornaments were provided by Adam, and the hectagonal summer house was designed by Adam's assistant George Richardson in 1775. You enter the house through Caesar's Hall, which took its name from the bronze plaster busts of Roman emperors standing in the niches. Originally, there were 16 columns to support the weight of those of the marble hall immediately above, but early in the 19th century, 12 smaller columns with cast iron cores were added to help support the weight. The dining room was intended for formal entertaining, and the family would have normally took their meals in the breakfast room in the family pavilion. The furniture is now covered over and the room dull, but its grandeur is still visible. The marble hall was meant to overawe and give you a sense of Roman grandeur, and it gives you just that. 20 columns dominate the hall, and sculptures from the classical antiquity stand in the niches in the wall. This is an absolutely breathtaking room, which can be intimidating and make you feel small. The music room was used as the Curzon's everyday sitting room and was used regularly, which meant that the room needed to be repainted in 1812, 1825 and again in 1857. The organ here was bought second hand from John Schetzler, who built organs for Buckingham Palace. The drawing room is the only interior planned by the architect John Payne before he was superseded by Adam. The 4 sofas were made in London in 1765 and feature mermaids. On their journey north, the sofas got chipped and a local man was hired to glue bits back on. The chandelier was first hung in 1770, but was only lit for grand occasions. The family's best paintings are displayed here, and the 2 doors at the back are false and are purely for the sake of symmetry. The library was a male preserve in the 18th century, even though women tended to read more. The painted plaster busts of the ancient Greeks and Romans were intended to encourage studiousness, and the bookcase on which they stand are filled with a fine collection of books. The mahogany table here was made on the estate in 1764 and was described by the Duchess of Northumberland as very handsome and well contrived. As we enter the saloon, you will again see the Roman influence as Adam borrowed its form from the Pantheon in Rome. The room was occasionally used for balls, but its main purpose was to impress and show off the family's prestige. The dressing room is yet another impressive room, with fine paintings and an elaborate framed mirror that makes the room seem bigger. Sadly, the state bedroom that is next to the dressing room is currently closed, and I hope that it reopens soon. The grand staircase is squeezed between the marble hall and the state bedroom and is loosely based upon Adam's design. Plaster casts are copies of classical statues and were moved here from the saloon in the 1780s. At the bottom are portraits of Lord and Lady Curzon dressed in their coronation durbar in 1903. Lady Curzon's dress is displayed in the Eastern Museum, but sadly that is still closed, and I hope it reopens soon. The park may look natural, but you might be surprised to know that it is almost entirely man-made. It was largely created to Adam's design. Today, the park offers great walks that you can choose between a long and short walk. The walks take you through woodlands and around lakes, as well as offering beautiful scenery and activities for younger children. These walks offer a chance to escape into nature and are excellent for dog walkers. All Saints Church is the only survivor of the medieval village which Sir Nathaniel Curzon demolished to make way for the hall. Most of the church was constructed from local sandstone in the late 13th century. The oldest part is the south door, which is Norman. The monuments inside the church reflect the ancientness of the Curzon family, the oldest being to Richard de Curzon, 1297. Over the years, alterations have been made and are clearly visible if you look close enough. Sadly, the church was closed during my visit, but I will return one day in hope of gaining footage inside. The graveyard is well kept and has many old graves. All the headstones are lying flat but are well preserved and readable, making the graveyard a must-see when visiting Kedleston. Kedleston Hall is a treasure of Derbyshire and is a must visit to any that enjoy history. But for me there is a darker side, as we must remember that this splendid house was built in a time when the poor were sent to the workhouse and made to feel like criminals for falling on hard times, all the while the rich were living in such splendour and begrudging their fellow men their humanity. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Until then, goodbye.